Commissioner, as we discussed, we're going to talk a little bit about arts and culture, and much of it is in District E, a thriving arts and culture scene here, the Wetlands Neighborhood Park. Fantastic sculptures by a local artist, transplanted local artist, Miguel Rodriguez. Fabulous.
Fabulous work. The kids that come out, I've even had students that came here years and years ago and talked about it. We've never formally recognized it, so hopefully with the opening of the Wetlands new interpretive center, maybe we can kind of do a joint venture and let people know about that in Nevada and in Clark County, we want to celebrate arts and culture. It's part of building the community, and that's what I think this is part of it as well.
We'll talk about some funding plans that you have and the board a little bit later, but this was actually one of the few commission projects in Clark County Parks. Talk a little bit about how a commission how a project like this gets commissioned.
Generally, we don't have an arts council or a commission like they do in the city of Las Vegas and in Henderson, but what we've done is through our Parks and Recreation, we have a arts organization that works through the Cultural Center at Winchester. And when they want to do, or public art opportunity comes about, and the county said, yes, this is one where we wanted to have one come forth. They then bring together local residents that probably lived in this area along with local artists, and they form a jury commit panel. They do a call for artists. They come out and they do their presentations, and then they're selected. So it's a much less political approach than you have in some of the other jurisdictions, and that's why, as we'll discuss later on the Arts Ordinance, we're not really looking at a commission. We're looking at really working with what's worked in the past, and that is how we do our call to artists and how we do our juries.
I know the Flamingo Arroyo Trailhead is another example of a commissioned arts piece, also in District E, and three out-of-state artists were selected for that one. A little bit different there?
A little bit different there in that it was through SNPLMA, which is the federal financing. It didn't cost the taxpayers anything in that case because it came from the sales of lands. There's the proceeds that was set aside. We did, in that case, not restrict it to local resident artists. We wanted the vision, and so the three that were selected actually had worked with the Paiute Nation and came up with the concept of the basket weave, which is what you see there at the Flamingo Arroyo, and I think it was the right selection to make in that case.
We do have a number of great local artists here, from established ones, the Martin Krylofs and Mike Wardle, K.D. Matheson, a lot of young artists, Zach Ostrovsky, Wendy Kovec, Joseph Watson. What is our responsibility to art in Clark County, Commissioner?
Well, I have a couple of Mike Wardles, as a matter of fact. and all the ones you mentioned are just phenomenal artists, and there's so many more. So part of what we want to do is, as we talk diversification in our community, we really should look at to the arts and culture. In fact, there's been studies done, and we're updating one now through Metro Arts, which is to say that for every dollar that you spend in tourism or in arts, you get $4 back. I think it's going to be even higher. So not only is it creating job, you're building a community, and you're appreciating the well-roundedness of a community. With the opening of the Smith Center, with you've got all your small film documentaries that are being made now. You've got a lot of local groups. Theater 7 is a good example that are really itching to make sure that through the art scene that we're applauding our community. We're recognizing that we have local talent, but sometimes you have to go out of state, and that's fine as well, because then you're helping in other areas, and you're spreading the wealth a little bit. Part of what we're missing, though, I think, in Clark County is we as a county have never financed any kind of real public art, and I think that's part of what I want to talk about later on in this segment.
Sure, let's pick it up right there then, Commissioner, and where the funding comes from you don't want to argue about. You've had some spirited discussions with the board already, and they even gave you some great ideas. Kind of talk about where we're at and kind of like how you'd like to see this happen, and of course with the support of the board.
Right. What I've always said is if we can get to the point where we adopt the policy, the funding source should not be a worrisome area for, as far as I'm concerned. It's getting the policy on the books, getting some initial funding in place, and then putting that project together. So I introduced an arts ordinance 2 weeks ago to hear from the commissioners. What are your thoughts? How would you want to fund it? I originally drafted the ordinance and modeled it directly after the city of Las Vegas's. Worked with Nancy Diener, a phenomenal art leader in the community as far as I'm concerned, and they do it as a percentage of their capital, any capital budget that's spent, whether it's sewers, Parks and Rec, roads, they take a percentage of that and put that into a public arts program. That's how they do it in Reno as well. That's what I initially drafted.
Is that built into the price of a capital project?
Yes.
Or just, okay.
Okay, and so what happens is it's just there. It doesn't have to be built on that particular project. If you're doing a sewer project, you're not putting a piece of public art necessarily in the sewer system. But what it does is it says that through your public works, works, your infrastructure, that you will have a commitment to creating public art. Our staff told me that we wouldn't, because we have financing's tough right now, it wouldn't generate anything, so they came up with a different funding stream. But through our discussions last week, I think some of the commissioners would prefer to go to where Henderson or Reno or the city of Las Vegas do it. So I'm bringing that art, I'm working on that this afternoon, as a matter of fact, to bring it back to the board to readopt what the city of Las Vegas does. One thing I will need to ask my commissioners or fellow commissioners hopefully to do is, we've got some one-shot money that came back, and I hope that we could take an allocation of that to start the fund up. As our infrastructure dollars and public works dollars start to come back in, then we'll have some money, but that way we need a corpus right now to get something started. So I'm hoping that they'll support that.
Some of the commissioners suggested, for example, if you are a contractor, and then, as you said, it wouldn't work for every project, but hey, if you have a contract to do some work out here at the wetlands, some of that money then could go for public art at the wetlands. Is that a good idea, or does that need more study?
I think that doesn't, from what I'm told from the arts community, you shouldn't pre-select where it has to be located. So if you create the arts fund, and then all of the construction money or the public works or the infrastructure dollars go into that fund, then you make a determination on where are we lacking it, maybe where do we need to reflect better on it, give people a sense of place. So it shouldn't be tied directly to a project. They should all just contribute into that fund, in my opinion.
And then, as you said, modeling things after what's going on in the city of Las Vegas or Reno, places like that.
It's working there, so it's not broken, so maybe that's just the way we look at it.
Sure.
So.
But then you would have to establish things like arts commissions or partnerships. No, you don't need to do that?
I wrote the ordinance to reflect what we already have in place through our Parks and Rec department. It's worked very well, and because we include not just artists, but residents from the area that will entertain the public art, it gives them a new voice. And so I think our structure actually works much better.
And how would this work in concert? Obviously, there is kind of an established arts district in the city of Las Vegas again, which is fantastic for them, but we don't need to rebuild another one. And at the same time, these artists, we can have them create their works in different venues as well.
Exactly. They could do call to artists, and we could even focus on some folks, but what the board wanted to make sure is that we funded projects in the county. So we didn't supersede what the city did. We do have county land in Henderson and city of Las Vegas and North Las Vegas. We could then use our money for that, as long as it was on county property. But there could be some joint projects. I think we have to break down that territorialism and that boundary line, and it should be about building a community. The one thing that the UNLV did a study several years back of what do people want, and they really do want a quality of life, and arts and culture play that absolute key part, along with parks and recreation and the programming and the beautifulness of celebrating where we live. And so, hopefully this discussion, this ordinance, will just be a tip of the iceberg of trying to rebuild a community as we go through these tough times economically.
Commissioner, the Winchester Cultural Center and the Clark County Government Center Rotunda always feature local artists, most of them up and coming, or, a lot of them have gone through CSN or UNLV Fine Arts programs, and it's a very small amount of money. Some honorariums are paid to these artists. That's money well spent, and that's giving them the exposure of what you're just talking about.
Absolutely. It's I think we spent $13,000 total in the last few years on public arts. Oh my heavens, we should be embarrassed because of that. But I think through an ordinance that actually tries to reflect a community and helps people take a moment to think, just to admire, whether you like it or don't like it, if it makes you pause and it's done its job. It's like the Yarn Stormers doing that on the Maryland Parkway, the bridge by Sunrise Hospital. I've had more people call me about, they go, oh wow, I'm driving and it just popped, and see, that's again, there you had senior citizens that knitted all this, put it together, and then through Friends of Winchester and a variety of other folks, they came up with the selecting the area, and it beautified the bridge, and it brought the community in, and it didn't cost anything. So it doesn't always have to cost money, but I do think we should do what we can to pay our artists. Most of them have second and third jobs. It's like the ones that we selected to do the ZAP program over at Cambridge. We had 7, I believe, local artists at that point. They're not getting wealthy off of this, but they are appreciating it. Community people would stop. The kids from Orr would be walking by and they'd like, oh man, I like to draw. And they were talking with the artists. It was wonderful, and we need to do more of that, not less.